Hello there, and welcome to something a little bit different that's taken from a stream I did the other day. Basically on stream sometimes I get noobs to fight each other so we can all point and laugh. Not really, we try to help them. We give them pointers, we tell them what they're doing wrong, what they could do better, things to think about, yada yada yada. So we had these two self-proclaimed noobs come in. One of them, Lone Wolf, decided to play as the High Elves, and the other, Jashin, played as the Dwarfs. Now, the Dwarfs can be a particularly difficult faction for a newer player to deal with, and an easier faction for a newer player to potentially win with against other newer players. Now, what you're going to see in this video is 3 different versions of the battle from 3 different skill level players, and the difference in their approaches and how they play. They're going to be fighting Jashin's Dwarfs, and we asked him to play the same way every time. He's going to face 3 different players, each bringing a different build and a different skill level to face him. Bear in mind, Jashin is a newer player himself, so he's still got his own bits to learn. But mostly, this is focusing on how the High Elves and newer players can deal with Dwarfs. So the first battle is going to be Lone Wolf and his attempt at taking out the Dwarfs. And then we've got one of our community members, Allegis, who is kind of a beginner. He's certainly out of the complete noob phase, but he's still got some things to work on. And the last battle will be Outer Region, who's a very experienced player who knows exactly what he needs to do to beat the Dwarfs. So let's have a look. The Dwarfs. Longbeards, miners, quarrelers, bit of artillery. Players at the back. Longbeards, the Norgremlings boys are here. They're fairly standard dwarfs. High elves, small and powerful. Maybe too small overall. So the units I had in question was this lady, the Ever Queen. She's great at sniping down characters. Characters aren't really a worry with the dwarfs. I mean, obviously they are. But in this case, he's only got Cheap Lord, which is just lucky. But taking out all the dwarf infantry is the problem, and the Ever Queen is 1,000 funds that isn't really going to do that very well. So that feels like that could have been money better spent. Also, the Frostfire Phoenix, a more defensive Phoenix, but he's playing very aggressive, so it kind of doesn't make too much sense. And if you're playing defensive, then it's almost like you're trying to outlast the Dwarfs, which you're obviously not going to do. So, yeah, not sure of the Phoenix or the Ever Queen choice. Good armor-piercing infantry choices, but not enough of them, maybe. Got some sisters. Don't want to shoot the shields though, they got silver shields on them. Are they silver shields? They still have silver shields? That looks bronze. I'm sure they had silver shields, didn't they? Did Longbeards have silver shields before, or am I going crazy? Maybe it's dwarf warriors who have silver shields. Or somebody in the dwarfs had silver shield. Maybe I'm crazy. So bringing the infantry in, it's kind of by itself though. His dragon's hanging back, getting shot by the artillery, needs to get it in there. So no chariots, which is one very useful thing against the dwarfs. His lord just hanging out in front of the stuff. It's not good, not going to be good. Cavalry coming around the back. Going to hit these Longbeards in the back, but it's going to do basically nothing because Silver Helms ain't got no armor piercing. Going to line up a breath attack perhaps. So a nice move with the breath attack, but again, much like the magic spells earlier, using it on a unit that doesn't really need it. Using it on miners with blasting charges, who the White Lions will deal with just fine, when you could have been using it on the Longbeards, although those ones are all the way out of the way, or the Norgremlings boys. So you've got to look at the value of the targets that you're attacking, whether it's worth. You only get 3 of those breath attacks and they're very powerful. Using them on miners, not really necessary. He's doing alright though. He's putting in some damage. Putting in more damage than I was expecting. Getting a little bit harassed by these Longbeards. So he's leaving the Lord very much just out in front of this organ gun. The organ gun doesn't have very much range, so he doesn't have far to go to get out of range. Got to be careful of that. Players around here chasing them off. White Lions here need to look alive. maybe committing a few too many things to fighting these longbeards all the way out here. Just allowing these missiles time to fire and artillery time to fire. A little bit divided. So you can see most of what went on in this battle. He brought a very small army, which was definitely too small for taking on the dwarfs. He had the right idea with his infantry though. It was armor piercing, had some white lions and some sword masters, and that's the first important thing. You need all the armor piercing you can manage, which can be quite difficult for the High Elves as they don't have any cheap armor piercing. You really have to fork out to get the good armor piercing for the High Elves. And the other problem was that he just needed to coordinate his army to attack a bit more. He got the cavalry around the back, but he charged into the Longbeards, really wanted to try and get after the artillery and the missiles to try and disrupt them more than anything. And he also had a couple of units that didn't make a great deal of sense for fighting the dwarfs. He had the Handmaiden of the Everqueen, who is typically a sniper, not really necessary against the dwarfs as their lords and characters are very easy to get away from. And he had the Frost Phoenix, which is only so much use really against the dwarfs. It could do some disruption, but there's units that could do that better for less money, potentially. So a bit of money wrapped up in those units, which could have been better spent on maybe some more infantry or something more disruptive. So that was Lone Wolf's attempt. Fair play to him for stepping up on stream and giving it a go. Now we're going to move on to our beginner level player in Allegis, as we call him. And his build is kind of based on what I was talking about between the battles. So after this battle you're watching now, I was in the custom battles menu showing people what kind of units I would bring against the dwarves as the High Elves, yada yada yada. Basically more armor piercing infantry and some stuff that can disrupt. Chariots, bit of cav, whatever. So Allegis' build is kind of built off what I was talking about, but we'll see what he can do with it and see if it helps him potentially beat the dwarfs. See what he does, see what he does. Careful your lord. Careful your lord running in front of that organ gun. So you see Jashin's missile units are all very tightly packed. There's 5 of them all in this little area. So a chariot could just come in and just knock around a few. Got to watch out for the slayers, of course. They'll get on top of you pretty quick, but you can just stop them firing for 10 seconds. That's 10 seconds of damage these white lions won't take, or these war lions won't take, or the Illyrian reavers won't take, whoever. Just that bit of disruption. See, he's letting his lord get focus fired here. What did I say? Watch out for that organ gun. No reason for your lord to be in there, really. He's not going to do anything. She can snipe a little bit, but might as well wait for a bit until this stuff is out of the way. Gotta get stuck in there. You can use something to distract all these blasting charges that would help, but too risky, I suppose, with the lord. The chariots could be good for that, actually, but they've stopped. Get these chariots moving. Oh, he's got a phallus through here a little bit more. Needs a bit more of a phallus. Oh, he's made it through. He's made it through. Disruption coming in. Here he goes. Get this stuff coming in quick time. Get it in there. Get it in there. Attack together. Watch out for those slayers. Get this chariot going. Go on, Allegis. You've got this. A little bit blown up by the old blasting charges there. Tiny Spook. Subscription with the Twitch Prime. Thank you, my friend. Much appreciated. Thank you kindly. Oh, these white lions have been flanked by blasting charges. That is bad news. These chariots need to get in there quick time. These need to get away from the slayers. Another unit of chariots over here. Needs to bring it in. This is good. It's not bad though. He's doing alright. He's got everything tied up. He stopped the missiles from firing mostly. Don't know where these white lions are running away to. That's going to cost him health. We've got 2 units of large fighting the slayers, which isn't good for him right now. Got his lord healed up. He could start sniping away at the lord if she isn't already. you go. Those chariots around. You go and get rid of those thunderers if you can. A couple of units to come back. A couple of routed units. There's some hammer and anvil waiting to happen on these boys. These longbeards. Chariots. We could maybe get moving somewhere else. Units to come back. Careful with that lord, you got slayers on you. Them slayers all around you. So that is pretty much Allegis' attempt at taking out the dwarfs. It goes better than the first one for sure, but still not quite able to pull it off. Still a bit too much left. Just his micro maybe being his enemy there, getting those chariots in a little bit late. If they got in sooner and disrupted all those missiles and the artillery and stopped it from firing and doing damage, could have really made a difference. Probably it didn't want to leave his lord in front of the organ gun as well at the start of the battle, losing most of its health right at the start. So you do have to always be wary of artillery going for your lord, especially if it's a snipey type artillery. They will likely, if the lord is in range, that's who they'll be aiming at. So be sure to keep them out of the way, at least until you've got that artillery disrupted. Then you could bring the lord in. Again, a valiant effort from Ledge, thanks to him for playing on stream and stepping up, giving it a go. Now to our more experienced player in Outer Region. You should notice the difference in his build, the units that he's chosen to bring, the coordination and his timing on bringing them all in together, and also not making silly mistakes like leaving his lord in front of an organ gun. A valiant effort. It's pretty widely spread. That can be another good thing against the dwarfs. Although the dwarfs do often play widely spread, but Jashin isn't in this case. Kind of boxing up a little bit more. Artillery hits big. Got a couple of things coming around here. Do miners have shields? No, I don't think so. No shields for the miners. But yeah, you could shoot those. But they're probably a waste of ammo because, you know, they're only miners and the white lions will deal with them. Easy enough. Lariel taking a few shots. It looks like he might be trying to bait some shots with the Lariel. Yeah, he's kind of zigzagging. There he was. Got these ready behind. See how he's not rushing these in? Not rushing these in. He's waiting for the rest of his army to get here. Because if he rushes these in... Oh, I say that. He's going to rush him in now. If he rushes these in, these slayers are probably going to jump straight on him, so... Can't quite... He's going to go for it. He's going to go for it. It's risky. He might get pinned in by slayers. So he's kind of sacrificing these almost. But he's going to disrupt these missiles. Which is going to buy time for these to not get shot in the face. We'll see if that pays off. The slayers are going to wreck him pretty quick. But he's disrupted maybe 3 or 4 missile and artillery units there. He's got the chariots in here doing the same thing now. A Lariel as well. Just disrupted missiles, and then in comes the armor-piercing stuff. All coordinated, mostly together. So he's got these, so he's just trying to tie these up, I guess, with the Rangers. They're obviously not going to beat Pilgrimlings, he knows that. We all know that. But they're keeping them out of the business for now. Bringing these Rangers, probably trying to get after the Slayers, like I said. Just a cheap alternative to taking out the Slayers without having to use up white lions. Coming in for the Longbeards, getting the armor piercing, the healing coming in. Keeping these white lions in the fight. They've got the chariots charging around, the Slayers trying to catch them. Of course they can't hold on to them. The Lariel still messing up Thunderers here, disrupting missiles. Bit of cavalry. The organ gun boys trying to come back. Slayers trying to sneak away from the Rangers, but the Rangers on them. Going to try and get a Lariel maybe. Still got his archers back here as well. They're popping off this whole time. Just dropping damage here and there. Don't seem to be focusing anything specific. Maybe these Slayers. I'd expect to see arrows, but maybe it's because this is not a replay. See, these missiles haven't had a chance to fire that much. The artillery did a bit of work to start with, but they were only really useful for the first 2 minutes of the battle. Once he reached them and the cav was on top of them, they haven't been doing anything since. Tower of Avalon. Healing up. Only the Rangers. Oh no, getting these white lions as well. Just going to try and get as much as he can in there. A little bit of healing for his Rangers to keep them fighting for a while. Keep them tying up the Iron Breakers maybe. Going to bring some white lions in. Got a few units vulnerable and alone. Going to finish him off. Still firing on the Slayers as well. Wearing them down with the missiles. Of course, their lack of armor makes them a good target. So from this, hopefully you can see the difference in approach and in execution. Outer's army was a lot more coordinated. It all came in and attacked together. He disrupted the missiles and the artillery at the right time, not too early so that his units got taken out straight away and didn't really do anything, and not too late, which would have allowed those missiles and artillery more time to do damage to the incoming infantry. He also had some archers to try and blast away at the Slayers rather than trying to beat them in melee, because they are very damn good at melee, and also had a couple of Rangers just for tying things up and trying to wear down those Slayers and maybe the Norgremlings. And then it was just the Cav to get in there and disrupt, the Chariots to disrupt, and Alariel to bring in some of that healing. So there you go. 3 different skill level players, each with different approaches and execution. Beating Dwarfs is very often a case of bringing enough armor piercing to deal with their front line and bringing enough stuff that can disrupt all their missiles and artillery. That's really mostly what it comes down to. We also gave Jashin some tips on playing his Dwarfs because he was a little bit too tightly packed for his own good. Those missiles and artillery were all right next to each other, which made it very easy for those cavalries to come in, as you saw from Outer Region, that were able to disrupt them all pretty much in one go. If they were all spaced out wide, he wouldn't have been able to do that, and he would have had a much harder time, and they also would have been able to defend each other because of the distance between the missile units. And that is about it. Thanks to all the guys that played in this video and played all these battles. Thanks for stepping up on stream. If you do want to find my Twitch, you can find the link in the description. I do these battles very often where we get newer players to fight each other. So if you want to be one of those newer players and you're looking to lose your multiplayer virginity perhaps, come on down. Thanks for watching. See you in the future.